Hi everyone, I'm Burak. Today we're going to present our work with Danning to you, and our co-author Thomas is unfortunately not here today. As you might see from the slide, and if you were here for Tarun's presentation, the title is heavily influenced from the famous book, Who Gets What and Why. And we're actually going to look into that, but in the concept of Ethereum blocks. And if you were around in the past couple of days, a couple more folks from Flashbots actually had quite nice presentations, and specifically Phil and Christoph. And one concept they were talking about was the centralization in how Ethereum blocks are being built today. And in fact, we're going to start from right there. So how are the blocks getting built today? And we know that as an Ethereum validator, when it's your turn to propose a block, you can either build it locally, meaning that you will use your own execution node and pick the transactions which go into your block. And this has the benefit that you pick the transactions that go into your block. But also, the same thing is kind of also occurs because you have to pick the transactions which will maximize your earnings from that block. And if you are not like a sophisticated validator who is aware of block or bundle merging techniques or block building techniques, well, this can lead that some validators could make really good money while you are left behind. And to avoid this kind of an heterogeneity in block rewards, we proposed or implemented MEV-boost, which is a PBS implementation that's been active since the merge. And the idea is that now the validators could actually just delegate their block proposing rights or auction them off to a set of external entities called builders, and the builders will simply bid for the right to earn this proposing rights. And in this trade-off, now the proposer simply gets easy access to rewards, which is good for the protocol because now ideally we have homogeneous access to MEV rewards from the validator side, good for consensus security. But the problem is that now the validator has no say in what goes into their block. And from an individual validator's perspective, this might not be such a bad thing, but we see that now this could be bad for our protocol. And we see that around 10% of the validators only actually produce their blocks locally, while 90% opt in for MEV-boost. And what we see today is that, as you might have seen already, only 2 builders are actually building 95% of MEV-boost blocks right now. In our study, it was 3 builders, but right now it's a duopoly. And why is this bad? Well, if these 2 builders simply don't want your transactions in their block, or if they have an economic reason to exclude you, they are free to do so. And what this simply means is that the following slide is not available. So we need to avoid this, and there are a lot of gadgets or protocols that's been under development for this right now. And in this paper, we simply wanted to understand, okay, how did these guys become so powerful in the first place? And there are 2 aspects that we tackle this problem. One of them is how do you earn market share? How do you get to win more auctions? And the other one is how do you actually increase your profits, or how do you become profitable while doing this? Because we see that there are some builders who are not building that many blocks, but are extremely profitable, whereas some builders who have relatively higher market shares, but they are not actually that profitable. And we want to understand how this can happen. And what we see here in this slide is that if we classify the transactions based on their objectives, like what they achieve, or we call them order flow labels, we see that Telegram bot transactions and MEV transactions, so your arbitrage, Sexlex arbitrage, sandwich, and so on, they cumulatively contribute 51% of all value to Ethereum blocks, while only consuming 10% block space, or 10% of the gas. Whereas less valuable transactions, I don't know, your simple ETH transfers or your retail swaps, they consume around 60% of whole gas, while contributing much less value. And one takeaway we have here is that the more valuable transactions are usually exclusively submitted, so they skip the public mempool, And the blocks are usually filled with less valuable public transactions. And on the right-hand side, you see an order flow composition of the top 10 builders. That is like what percentage of value comes from which order flow label. And like one of the results again we achieve is that the valuable order flows are also like available in higher percentage in these more successful builders. And one thing we actually find is that the diversity of the order flow is positively correlated with the market share. So those builders who have more diverse order flow can simply be more competitive or be competitive more frequently than those who are dependent on a single order flow type. For example, like if you are a searcher builder, which you only get the order flow of your searcher, then you are dependent on that opportunity to arise so that you can win the auction, whereas a builder like Beaver Build or Titan, who is like getting diverse order flow, can simply be competitive more frequently. The other thing, of course, is yes, you can win the auction one way or other. Maybe you can subsidize, but how do you actually make profits? And to keep profits in the MEV-boost auction structure right now, you need to have exclusive order flow, which gives you the competitive edge to win the auction, but on top of that, keep some profits. So, or in other words, you don't have to express your full value to win the auction. And we see that if you have an exclusive order flow provider, which means you have a provider that is only providing meaningful order flow to you and no one else, and you can think like canonical examples like SCP and Beaver Build or Wintermute and rsync, then you can actually be more profitable. And again, there is a positive correlation there with having an exclusive provider and the percentage of profitable blocks that you can produce as a builder. And in fact, we find many other features which are correlated in the same direction with being profitable and having a high market share, especially among the top 10 builders. And this kind of indicates a chicken and egg problem. That is, like, if you want to be profitable, then you need exclusive order flow, which like gives you this competitive edge, which differentiates you from others. But that kind of an order flow only goes into those builders who already have high market shares, because those order flow providers, they want inclusion guarantees. And hence, like as a new entrant to the market, you simply have no chance. And this is why like we see such a convergence in the number of builders who are like simply winning the auction today. And Denning will tell more about like reasons of that, but this is like one of the key takeaways. And we also go further into some builder strategies. So like one of them is you can think it as like how they pack blocks and what percentage of value they drive from their block regions. And this is specifically interesting for the top of the block region, because those competitive transactions, which are okay to pay high fees, they want priority. And by priority, this could be like acting first on a state that was stale, so like the last block, for example, or like doing a sex-dex arbitrage, which means that someone shouldn't touch the same state before them. And for this, they're okay to pay high money. But of course, as a builder, you need this order flow to come to you so that like you can place them in the top positions and get the money from them. And we see that the builders who have high market shares are also the ones, again, who are making the most money from top of the block. And you can also see some interesting behavior in the end of the block region, and we can discuss that later on more. But simply, you can think it like some builders allow some searchers to do searching after they construct the block, so on the state that's already transitioned before simply like we move on to the next slot. Another interesting strategy here is the latency and bidding behavior. That is, of course, this auction happens in a 12-second period, and as a builder, you need to relay your transactions to the intermediary relays so that they can make them available to the proposers. And of course, latency matters in this structure, because even if you have like a really high value bid, which like you just maybe created in the last like 200 milliseconds of the auction, if you cannot relay this information to the network, then simply it's worthless. And we see that this structure simply incentivizes latency and co-location with the relays. And like one strategic behavior is cancellations that these builders use, which is simply like lowering their bid in a strategic way, which is maybe because they see that like a signal, like an external signal, is not in their favor anymore. Like if they're doing a SEX-DEX arbitrage, now they want to lower their value that's available in the auction. And now Denning is going to continue with, so how do we ended up like with such a centralized market structure?
Yes. So with all these learnings of all the behaviors and strategies the builders are doing to win the market share and to make more money, back to the critical question, how do we end up with such centralized market structure today? If we revisit this data, if we compare how the transparency label, or basically meaning if the transactions are going through public or private mempool, we can see this also interesting 80-20 rule here. On the right side, you could see pretty much only 20% of transactions are going through as exclusive signal, meaning they are going through private mempool, while they are providing more than 60% of value to the final payouts to the proposer, meaning the MEV value of the block. Pretty much as Burak already hinted, the exclusive order flow is providing much higher value than the public mempool transactions. With all these learnings, what's the outcome? We can see that like from the right side of the chart, from the bottom to the top, we rank the block builders from the biggest market share to the lower one. We can see pretty much the bigger the builder is with the market share, the higher private order flow percentage is. Everyone learned that, okay, we need to make sure get to acquire more transactions order flow privately and not have other people to access it, so we can basically be able to keep more value to ourselves rather than competing in the bidding to the proposers. We can also see pretty much that on the left side, most MEV valuable transactions are pretty much all private today. What does that mean? If we look at a time zone horizon, you can pretty much see that this behavior or learning has been pushing all the transactions on Ethereum towards private mempool more and more over time. During a 2 years time frame, if we look back from the beginning of 2023, in the beginning of the 2023, we only see 3 to 5% of private mempool transactions, meaning every day when the transaction landed on Ethereum, only 5% are going through private mempool. But this number has going up to 10% and then 15% in the end of last year, and then actually bumped up to 35% right now. So today, there are pretty much, one-third of the transactions on Ethereum are never seen by all those public mempool nodes. So why did it happen? What happened to the jump in 2024 Q2? If we examine on all those top block builders block and basically break it down by the order flow content, you could see that besides the order flow that belongs to themselves exclusively, for example, the thing we identified as the Beaver build, who is also a SEX-DEX trading firm that has the SCP flow, rsync has their Wintermute flow, we could see some critical order flow, for example, like the orange one, Banana Gun, has been going up in Titan's block. Very interestingly, it correlates with this like dotted line on the right side, which represents the profit of the builder that has shooted up crazy in the beginning of this year, which correlates with the growth of the Banana Gun flow. So the answer to the question, why did the private order flow went up over time, is that we have seen this movement of block builders trying to compete and almost like competing in an order flow acquisition war, which happened quietly. Everyone is trying to get deal to the basically the most valuable Telegram bots or potential researchers. Who is the winner? We can see that Titan has got the Banana Gun flow here. Beaver build had an increase in the Jared from Subway, the famous searcher who is doing sandwiching attack on Ethereum. The result is that basically we have a more centralized market structure. One interesting to highlight is that there's another thing that happened, which is in Q2, MetaMask, the wallet, they're starting to monetize their transaction order flow to block builders, which then drove the crazy 35% up. So to revisit how did we end up here today, you could see that with the order flow acquisition thing that we mentioned in the beginning of this year, there is a huge change or like a paradigm shift of how the block builders started from pretty much 3 builders in the past half years, become now only Titan and Beaver. rsync pretty much gave up after they lost the biggest deal and decided to not to like try to keep their market share up because to do so, they will have to give out more profits from their searching flow and also subsidizing potentially. So this is our takeaway. MEV-boost have successfully enabled uniform access to MEV rewards for Ethereum validators. However, the current market structure is not ideal, and it undermines Ethereum's censorship resistance and neutrality properties. And we know that everyone in the market wants a more decentralized market structure, including the top builders. By talking to the top builders are also sick of this basically order flow acquisition competing game, and because there's a lot of inefficiency in current design. For example, if the top block builders are trying to acquire order flow exclusively to each other, meanwhile, these order flows are actually not really conflicting in terms of the state accessing of the block space. They are basically competing, say, for example, the centralized exchange and exchange, searching flow competing against the Telegram bots flow, which can totally exist in one block. But today, because they belong to different block builders, they will have to compete to land in the next block and so to pay more to the proposer, which also causes proposer monopoly. Another thing is that it's really hard for any new builder to come to the market without adding a lot of subsidy to kickstart and market themselves in the inclusion rate charts, which have evolved into a pretty toxic zero-sum game where everyone is trying to subsidizing more, which also then causing the top builder to subsidize more, and which is very unsustainable for the whole game. So what if we are able to find a way to decentralize the market set and redistribute value to all the people in the game? So our team, Flashbots, we believe that decentralizing the block builder set is one solution towards solving this centralization of the market structure. We believe it has to be achieved step by step. One is we have to basically design a set of the multi-operator set where multiple builders can run and you can trust them to be run by any of the neutral entity. And another thing is that we can have this neutral platform to allow any block builder to come to the block building algorithm and just bring their order flow, keep them private, potentially in a TAE, and we can be able to fairly redistribute value for the order flow they provide. One thing we have implemented so far is a gas refund rule. So the idea is basically like whoever you have a set of order flow that you want to build and land in the next block, you have a measurement of the realized value, which is the on-chain payment, how much these transactions are paying, including gas fee and tip to the builder. You also have a block value delta, or we call it marginal contribution value for the block. So meaning for the block, when we simulate to build a valuable block without this order flow, how much is the value compared to how much the value will increase, including this order flow. The delta would be your marginal contribution to the block. And then we can basically calculate how much refund we can potentially refund back to the order flow providers based on how much profit the builder can take. We have already collected around 60 ETH refunds for the order flow providers that are sending to Flashbots builders. We have processed 3 ETH of them, and we're hoping to see more and more adoption for this. Thank you. That's our talk. And if you're interested in all those details of the data, feel free to check out the paper, which is included in the AFT conference this year. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Hello. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for the speakers. I do agree, a monopoly is never good, right? If I could invite you all just to stand here to answer some of the questions as posed by the audience. So the first one, and most outvoted, what do you think about ePBS?
Yeah, so if you have attended Christoph's talk yesterday, simply his theorem shows that, or suggests that the centralized structure of the market would not change under ePBS or any APS designs. And hence, that's why we are at Flashbots trying to put the building logic inside a TE where like the outside interference is not possible, and thus achieve some kind of a decentralization in the process. Because again, ePBS, yes, has benefits in terms of like providing an enshrined market for the same purpose as MEV-boost without relay intermediaries, but it won't be a solution for centralization.
Okay, thanks. On to the next one, which is how do you get the metrics for order flows, for example, the Telegram bot?
Yeah, so I guess we should have defined the metrics, MEV, what does that mean in our context? It simply means how much value are paid out to proposers. So we're calculating how much basically each transactions are paying in gas priority fee. The base fee is burned, so it doesn't really count. And there is a function called Coinbase transfer in MEV-boost the software, which pretty much looks like a value transfer in traces. So them all together would be the value or the payouts from the transactions. Then there's a layer of bidding involved. So when the block builders are collecting all the transactions, this is how much value they're receiving, which is the true value of the block. And then we are looking at how much builder are bidding to the proposers. So the value of the Telegram bots is simply basically looking at their payouts on chain and labeling based on their routers.
Okay, thanks for the insightful one. Okay, on to the next one. Is the code publicly available for labeling order flows?
We have all the queries that we have used on Dune available and actually referenced in the paper, but then some of the internal logic is, I think, not yet publicly available, but we can definitely share it if you reach out to us.
Okay. Next one, did introduction of block markets have any effect on builder market?
Yeah, one thing we observed and also we note in the paper is it's not directly on the builders market in terms of like who wins, etc. But we see that after the introduction of blobs, the gas space or the block space consumed by these roll-up transactions simply like which uses call data and so on actually lost significance. So you can see, I guess, a positive impact in that sense.
Okay. Next, pretty interesting one. Isn't T just trust me, bro?
It's definitely not trust me, bro. There is like remote attestation and many other things you can verify. Like if the code running in TEE is actually what they're saying. We actually have a teammate, Dimars. He had his talk about this more specifically. So I would suggest you guys to check it out. I would say TE wouldn't help with censorship resistance, and there might needs to be other solutions to patch to that. But
and also just to add on to that, I mean, aren't we trusting anything everyone so far? We trust the relays. I don't know, we trust the builders who we send our order flows to. Maybe this time we can try trusting like cryptography a bit more and give a shot to TEs.
Okay. I think we have time for one final one. So can gas refunds increase spam as it will mean the spammers can get the most of the gas back?
It's an interesting question. I'm curious your take too, but I think I don't think it will increase spam, or maybe you meant a different meaning of the spam. But like, if you're paying that much money, like the refund is capped at how much you're paying as of today. So I don't know if what are you getting out of spamming us?
I mean, so to get a refund, you simply have to end up landing in our block and have a contribution, and of course, depending on your unique contribution, you get refunded. So, like, you can spam, but it will be just like bad for us in terms of like dealing with that, but it won't like affect anything in your refund.
As a matter of fact, spamming might actually hurt your refund because we then will see similar order flow that is competing with your other flow, and which makes the marginal contribution of your flow less.
All right. Thank you so much for the Q&As. There was a lot of questions. Thank you very much. We will be back at 12 p.m. So feel free to get a toilet break, stretch your legs. See you later.